Here's my friend's Cube e-bike. It's a Reaction Pro, I believe it's called the Acid 625, this version. And I'm just starting to fit some plastic mudguards specifically for this bike. I've fitted the first bracket just loosely at the moment, but the tricky part is to get these stays mounted onto the forks. 1A seems to match because I do have a hole in the bridge there. So I've fitted that clip just now, and looking at it, 1B is irrelevant, and the instructions don't make sense. Here it's showing a long Allen bolt, which is like a clamp bolt for the end of the mudguard stay, and then it's showing a shorter Allen bolt which also has to go through this L bracket like this. So one of my problems here is that the packet had two left-hand plastic blocks, and so the recesses aren't quite right for it. But what I can see is that you need to put the short bolt in there, not the long bolt that shows on the instructions. And the long bolt obviously needs to go through the plastic and also through the plastic angle or L-shaped bracket there. The next problem I'm coming up against is that you've got a hole there for going actually into the fork like that. Okay, now the only two bolts that are left are this bolt here, shown as number 18, and it is very small. Okay, and then when you use that same bolt to go into the bottom of the shot, the fork, it's too small. So I've got these two out, and they fit neatly through the little angle, and they fit, the M5 fits perfectly into the bottom of the shock there. So I'll just connect that all together and show you the result. Everything's loose at the moment, and I'm just going to measure up the length of the stays, so bear with me. So I'm just holding the end of the stay to roughly the depth that it will go inside that block, and if you look at the gap, it's quite obvious that I'm going to have to remove a section of off the end of this stay. So I've measured, and it looks like I've got to take off 30 millimeters. I hope I'm right and I don't cut off too much, so I'll let you know how I get on with this. That's 30 mil cut off the end of one part of the stay, and I'll just deburr that end, just clean it up before I cut the other one. Right, so maybe more by luck than judgment, I seem to have the right clearance there, taking 30mm off. I've got that just temporary in there, and I didn't saw the second side off in case I got it wrong, but that seems to have worked out okay. So I'll cut the other side off at 30mm as well. They do show a clearance on the diagram of 4B. There we go. Yeah, 6mm minimum. So we seem to have that. So I'll just cut the other side off and we'll get this fitted properly and tightened up. Yeah, just a note, there's not a lot of space there with this thick shoulder to put a spring clip, a star washer. So I'm just going to use some thread locker on the end of this before I screw it into the bottom of the shocks. Because these plastic blocks that were included in the kit, there was only 2 left-handed ones. Presumably that's what the L means there. So because they're not handed, I've had to tighten up the back, the short bolt, the clamping bolt on the stay from behind. So that's the bolt there, nice and tight. The 3 bolts there tightened up, and looks as though we've got a good even gap with the minimum 6mm slightly exceeded there, but pretty pleased with that. And if we look for this particular bike anyway, all these extra fittings were not required. So here we are with the rear mudguard or fender for the cube acid, and the first thing I noticed, okay, so you've got 2 alternatives there, 5A and 5B depending on your bike, and this is what I have at the end of my mudguard. The picture doesn't show that at all. So it looks as though if you have this boss here, then you can just put a screw through the hole. Through what hole? There's a hole there which seems to have a matching rubber plug there, but as yet I've still to work this out. So looking at the clearance, so you see there is a screw, a bolt hole there. The next item that I see, there's 2 alternatives, 6A and 6B, where in 6A you actually need to use a 6.5mm drill. So that's for fitting this part of the mudguard. So again, that's something I'll have to look at. And then you can see that number 7, it's definitely saying you'll need to cut the mudguard stays to length. And number 8 shows it nice and clear, but on the actual mudguard, you have a short length of pipe. Okay, so my answer to that was actually to lift the plastic pipe over the top, and I guess that will direct into that hole there, and there's a plate there that could be removed for fixing a rear light at a later stage. And there we go, that's just to show you what I mean. That's been fed into the hole there for a light. At least I do have handed blocks, fitting blocks for the ends of the stays, unlike what happened with the front mudguards. I've just fitted these directly onto the uncut ends of the stay, and they fit neatly into a recess there. But I've just fitted that temporarily to give me a feel for how it's all going to fit together. So as it shows in figure 6A, the plastic block is there, slightly different looking number 24 bolt. It says number 26, but in what I received in this pack, there is no washer as shown, but we do have a nylock nut there that we can fit. So it looks as though I'm going to have to get that sorted first, and this end of the mudguard stay fixed as well, to make sure that I get the 6.5mm hole drilled in exactly the right place. The annoying thing for me is that these bolts have to fit in from the back to thread into there. What I had to do was to fit the blocks without the stay slotted in, because it was just too tricky, and I wanted to make sure I didn't cross thread the bolt when I inserted it from the back. And what I've done is I've reinstalled the back wheel to have a look at the gap that I'm going to have with the mudguard stays not cut to length, to see how all three different fixing points will match. So I've actually drilled a 6.5mm hole, 25mm from the end of the mudguard, and that's going to fit down there. First, I've actually fitted the rubber grommet, that rubber plug. Maybe at some time it could be used as a cable entry, but the cable can easily come underneath the bottom bracket and into the tube anyways. So looking at 5A, actually the number 19 bolt is actually an M5, so 6.5mm hole was not necessary, but it's good enough. What fooled me was that the entryway here is very large, but actually the threaded hole inside low is only a 5mm. And the only bolt that I have is this quite long one. Okay, that M5 long bolt actually fitted okay. It's quite tight here, but I could potentially use one or two spacers if I wanted to. Maybe some more of these spacers. So I've discovered that you can slot these, you can just press these plastic washer things together if you want to build up the gap there and not distort the mudguard. But for now I'm leaving it like that so that I can measure exactly where I need to drill the 6.5mm hole for this position here. So I marked the position for drilling my hole. So I'll just drill a small pilot hole through from this side, just to see what's happening on the other side. So I drilled that small pilot hole partly because I just wanted to check that I got it center, and now I can have a look. I mean, it was hard to transfer those markings around to the inside, so this is just one way that I've done it, and that will give you a guide for where you need to drill your hole if you've got exactly the same bike size and mudguards as these. So I'll now drill the larger hole. That's the plastic block fitted. Just slots in from underneath. You will of course need to fit the nylock nut first before you push it into the frame there. So I wasn't quite happy with the way the mudguard was fitting. It was a bit stressed, and I don't want to strip that M5, that quite long bottom bolt. So I've just actually made this into a slight slot to enable a bit of play, and we're now looking at say a 30mm center for that hole. So that will mean that it's not under any strain, it's not misshaping it. Now that looks a neat job with the two washers. What did we call them? Number 11s. And there's one there as well. So that seems to work pretty good. And remember that there are a bolt and nut. There's a bolt and nut to fit in there to lock the end of this stay into place. It's just to clamp it, I guess. So I'll use a bit of thread locker in that bolt as well. Yeah, I think because you have this clamping screw, if you took maybe 5mm or so too much off, you would be okay. Just don't slide it into this bracket all the way, and I think you'll be all right. So like I say, I'll just put this all together now. Those eagle-eyed people might notice that the original Schwalbe tyres have been replaced on this bike. It's a friend of mine, and he does mostly riding on the road. That's an aside. The job's done. Front mudguard, back mudguard. It wasn't that easy. Just a reminder, this is a Cube Reaction Pro. I think yeah, it's a frame size large 29er. If you have any useful suggestions, comments, please do that in the usual place. Be kind. It's the first time I fitted these, and I just hope that it's been useful to you.